Okay, so he's discussing briefly the way that we are held captive by our own minds. Right? So what this text is doing, in general what this text is doing, is highlighting the problem that we face. Right? So what's important is to be able to consider the possibility, which is what this text is basically saying, that any of the major problems that we face as individuals, in our personal lives, in our interpersonal lives, the problems that we face within society, the problems that we face as a species, they can be boiled down by and large to this single phenomenon known as human attachment. Right? Now, that doesn't mean there aren't other factors external to that. Right? But what this is saying is that it is the attachment which is the primary cause. And that if we can address the attachment aspect of the problems that we face, everything else just falls into place. You know, we were talking a little bit last week about this idea of a divorce happening in a couple because of irreconcilable differences. And you pointed, this factor was there, and this factor was there, and this factor was there, and ultimately that led to the downfall or the breakup of the relationship. Those factors would not necessarily be the cause of the breakup. The cause of the breakup is the attachment. And the attachment makes those factors unworkable. But when you don't have an intractable sense of, I have to be served, or my demands must be met, then any of the so-called problems that come up, they unravel themselves. So we're not saying that there are no other factors that are causing increased pressure individually as a species, but that the attachment makes it so much more difficult, almost impossible to deal with those factors. And at the same time, the attachment creates problems of its own. And so this is the most important aspect of our own relationship with the world that we need to address. You know, we hear a lot about, and we're going to get into this in this one, because this is talking about attachment to religion. You know, we do hear a lot at the moment about the state that society's in. You know, it seems that there's a fragmentation, that there's an increased sense of militancy and violence, and of course the terrorism. And we sort of get a sense of not only anxiety, but a sort of a helplessness. What can I do? And you sort of feel there's nothing I can do. The problem that we feel that way is because we're looking for something to do out there. If we're going to do something out there in the external world, the first thing we have to do is to address what's going on internally. Our own attachments have to be addressed before we can look to improve anything externally. And that's what this text is essentially talking about. Now, it is our obligation to serve the external world. It is our obligation to fix what needs to be fixed, to make the world better. That's definitely our obligation. But we can't do that unless we know how to do it properly. So the problem is that we have at best, a mediocre relationship with the world. You know, often it's a bad relationship with the world. And from that platform, we try to fix it. No, first of all, improve your relationship with the world, then try to fix what the world is. So this is the first step, is dealing with our own attachments. So if we want to serve the world, if we want to make it a better place, the first thing that we have to do is to work on the attachments that we have. Once we've done that, then we're in a position to actually be effective. So this is often there's a quote inscribed at a tomb in Manchester, I believe. And it's talking about exactly this. The abbot, and he says, I tried to save the world, I tried to save my society, I tried to fix my family, nothing worked. And he comes to this realization that if I only had worked on myself first, where would that have gone? That would have inspired my family. With their support, that would have gone out to the community, and with that support, that would have gone out to the entire world. So it's not a matter of starting on the outside. It's a matter of starting on the inside and working out. So this is what this book is doing. It's highlighting that attachment. So the attachment he's talking about in this section now is the attachment to religion. So this is, of course, particularly relevant. Right? What did we have 4 or 5 days ago? Another terrorist attack, this time in Manchester. In the name of religion, people are carrying out these acts. The texts talk about performing certain actions, and those actions are being carried out by human beings that live among us in our society here in 2017. And there is a temptation to condemn the religion per se, which is a valid argument, because if there's a bad idea somewhere, we have to criticize it. It's a bad idea to drink alcohol the evening before you have an exam in the morning. It's just a bad idea. You get drunk before your exam. So you can criticize bad ideas. In fact, we have to criticize bad ideas. But while we're doing that, we should not sideline a huge part of the problem. The problem is not the religion per se. The problem is the attachment to the religion. If you look at, say, for example, you can look at two different types of people. One person who uses their religion in a way to harmonize their relationship with the external world. So when they come across something in their text, which they say is, how can this possibly be a useful... the old example that occasionally brought up in the Old Testament, if your wife is not a virgin on her wedding night, you're quite within your rights to take her and stone her to death on her father's doorstep. A person who obviously rejects that notion has the capacity to say, despite what the text says, this is not the way to function in the world. There's not that same degree of fanatic attachment to the text, to the culture, to the history, to the author. Whereas someone else who reads something in a different text carries it out because he has to. Right? And so it's the attachment to the religion that is the problem, not the religion per se. If it was the religion per se, then every adherent of the religion would carry out the same actions. It's not the religion per se, it's the way that we are relating to it. Part of the problem when we come across attachment to religion is that when we come up against intense resistance to criticism of bad ideas. And this is again part of the problem with attachment to religion. You try to criticize what is patently, obviously a bad idea, and you're not allowed to do so. Because the other person, there's such a resistance in them. Where does their resistance come from? Attachment to the religion. So this is a really important distinction to make, the distinction between the religion per se, which will have good elements and bad elements, like all man-made creations. They're, some good, some bad. The problem is the attachment to that creation and how we are relating to it.